Hello everyone, today is 11th of July. Now it's 10 o'clock in the morning Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update for a day in which I will share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. And there are quite few very significant developments and news that I like to share with you for this moment. And I will start with a very short update on situation on the Ukrainian battlefield. First of all, information about settlement of Yevgenievka. I reported several days about Russian progress in this direction, and now we are receiving official confirmations that Yevgenievka is under full Russian control. Also, by the way, bigger Telegram channels in Russian segment of internet are reporting about further Russian breakthrough in New York direction, and according to some sources, Kiev regime's troops are withdrawing from this city. They are leaving defense lines in certain areas of the city. I don't think they are completely withdrawing from New York, although theoretically that's a possibility also. But they are leaving certain positions, and if this information is correct, these reports are correct, then probably before end of this week, Russian troops will be in the central parts of New York. Right now, Russian troops are further improving their positions in western part of New York, in this district here, and also on the eastern side of New York. Significant progress on part of Russian military personnel, and also we are receiving additional confirmations about Russian presence in southern Volchansk. I reported earlier in previous updates that while many military experts were expecting large scale or sectoral level scale of counteroffensive of Kiev regime in direction of in Lipsy and Volchansk directions, especially for this summit, that is NATO summit, that is taking place in Washington, so that Zelensky and his Western masters will have something to talk about. Well, in reality, it's Russian troops that are improving their positions, and in Volchansk, for example, reports are coming in that Russian troops establish a foothold on the southern part of the Volchansk. Main supply and support line of Kiev regime troops were cut in northern parts of Volchansk, and several channels, including big channels on Telegram, are reporting about complete withdrawal of the Kiev regime troops, beginning of the complete withdrawal of the Kiev regime troops from northern Volchansk. Let's see what military channels will report about it, but I would not be surprised at all if this information will be confirmed, and if Kiev regime forces will flee northern Volchansk in today or in next couple of days. So yes, this is it when it comes to situation on line of contact. As I said, I just wanted to share with you some few informations about developments there. Russian control over the Yevgenievka, Russian progress in New York and Volchansk directions. I wonder if these reports are correct and the Kiev regime forces really fled northern Volchansk. This morning I did not yet see additional information on that topic. Let's see what military summary channel will report on this matter in today's update. Now let's go through some media reportings, and the Vzгляд newspaper has this article that Mikhail Galuzin, deputy of the Russian foreign minister, stated that Russia is not interested to participate in any summit which will base its work on the so-called Zelensky's peace formula. I guess this is the answer on the questions that is circulating on internet. Will Russia be invited in a second peace summit on Ukraine? Will Russia participate or not? Well, we have an answer now. Russia has no interest to participate in any summit where basement of the negotiations will be the so-called Zelensky's peace formula, because Moscow was very clear from very beginning that this so-called peace formula is total nonsense. It's a wish list basically of Zelensky, and no serious people can seriously discuss that. And I completely agree with Russian leadership on that matter. There is no way serious people can seriously discuss Zelensky's so-called peace formula, man. It's just a total waste of time. RIA Novosti is also reporting that in Odessa region, in a settlement of Chernomorsk, Russian armed forces conducted precise long-range missile strike on warehouse where British mercenaries were concentrated, and also British weapons, long-range weapons. Unfortunately, there is no precise information about what type of weapons were in that warehouse and how many British mercenaries were killed and wounded as a result of this strike. But according to coordinator of the pro-Russian underground in Nikolaev region, Sergei Lebedev, strike was very effective, precise, and right after this strike, emergency vehicles rushed towards Romania, and most likely they were evacuating wounded British mercenaries, and probably they were transferring killed British mercenaries into Romania. I don't think British media will pay any attention to this report, but it is interesting to know. It is interesting to note that Russian armed forces are tracking movements of these NATO mercenaries, so-called mercenaries. In reality, we all know, by the way, that this is officers of British military intelligence, for example, and British MOD, right? Ministry of Defense. They are just disguised as mercenaries, and we also know it's a well-established fact that all these formerly Kiev regime's long-range strikes with missiles, aerial and maritime drones in the southern parts of this theater of operations, all of it is controlled and conducted basically by British militaries. We can call them mercenaries or whatever, but it's British mercenaries and British intelligence. So it's interesting to know how many of those British mercenaries were neutralized as a result of this strike, but unfortunately underground was unable to find out detailed information on that. Maybe we will learn some more about it in upcoming days. Let's see. Also, by the way, of course, Russian media pays attention to this so-called summit that is taking place in Washington nowadays, NATO summit. And we have now final declaration of this summit. For example, NATO does not rule out further expansion. They want to move into Southern Europe, in Balkans, and in the Black Sea area. They want to expand in these directions. When it comes to Southern Balkans, well, I guess Western ruling class and their puppets in NATO member states, and majority of those people, by the way, that are formally in charge of NATO member states, majority is puppets of the true rulers of the Western world, obviously. So they want to, I guess, establish full control over the Bosnia and Herzegovina, bring this republic into NATO, into this terrorist organization that NATO is. It's not going to be easy, because Bosnia and Herzegovina is divided in three parts mainly. It's Croatians, Bosniaks, and Serbs. And I don't know about Bosnians and Croatians, but Serbs definitely not gonna be happy to join this terrorist organization that is guilty of killing thousands of Serbs, civilian Serbs, by the way. And if it comes to final decisions, then I guess Republika Srpska, which is a part of Bosnia and Herzegovina, will declare its independence from this confederation. Also, I guess NATO is talking about Serbia, by the way. In the perspective, they want to establish full control over the Serbia, obviously. They already controlling parts of Serbia, like Kosovo, and Kosovo is turned into biggest NATO military base in Southern Europe. And they're talking about Montenegro, obviously, Chernogorия. So they want full control over the Bosnia-Herzegovina, Chernogorия, and Serbia. It's not gonna be easy. It's not gonna be easy. But that's the ambitions of the Western ruling class and their puppets in the NATO leadership or NATO leadership. When it comes to Black Sea region, when it comes to, on topic of expansion of NATO, there is only few areas that they can expand there. I don't think they are that stupid that they still have hopes that Ukraine will join NATO. It's not happening. If anything will be left on the political map from Ukraine after this conflict will end, it's going to be a landlocked territory anyways. So that entity will have no access to Black Sea, first of all. Then Moldova is a target for NATO. We all know that. But Moldova cannot join and will not join NATO or EU for that matter as a state, because Moldova is destined to be to undergo full-scale disintegration. I'm 100% sure about that. Analysis of all the information that is in open sources give us a quite a good and lot of indicators that Moldova is destined to disintegrate. Parts of Moldova will join Romania most likely, and other parts of Moldova will drift towards Russia. For example, Transnistria, obviously, Gagauzia Autonomous Region, and certain additional areas of modern Moldova that will join Gagauzia and Transnistria. It's just inevitable. And also NATO most likely is talking about Georgia and theoretically Armenia also, although Armenia is a landlocked state, has no direct access to the Black Sea, but Southern Caucasus region in general can be seen as a Black Sea region, although it's in between Black Sea and the Caspian Sea, obviously. And when it comes to Georgia, let's talk about Georgia in this case. I don't think Georgia will ever join NATO. I was always skeptical that Georgia had any realistic chances to become NATO member states. I never believed that it was in Georgia's interest to drift towards NATO or the West. It was very clear to me personally, by the way, decades ago when I was living in Georgia and working as a journalist. It was very clear that Western ruling class was only about using, abusing, and sacrificing Georgia, and it is so clear now that that was exactly the case. But still, officially at least, current Georgian government has this aspiration to join NATO and the EU. But I guess they know that Georgia will never join NATO or EU, and I guess current Georgian leadership knows perfectly well that they don't even need to join NATO or EU. They are better off by staying on distance from their influence of the Western ruling class, and therefore these ambitions of the NATO leadership or the Western ruling class to establish full control over the Georgia is also doomed to fail, in my personal opinion. And I don't even want to talk about Armenia, by the way. Armenia also never had any chances to join NATO, even if current Armenian leadership, Pashinyan and his government, that are assets of the CIA, are all in for joining NATO. It's not happening. So yes, NATO has some ambitions on further expansion, but they're gonna fail. They're gonna fail, by the way. NATO as a terrorist organization is destined to failure. And I'm not even sure that after 5-10 years time NATO will even exist. So yes, that's my take on this information about NATO ambitions. Also, by the way, in their final communique or declaration, NATO is threatening world and demanding from world to stay away from Russia, not to cooperate with Russia in any way, shape or form. Once again, demonstration of how delusional those people that are in charge in the collective West really are, because after all, we are talking about some 80% of humanity, by the way, that is on Russian side, right? We are talking about BRICS, we are talking about Shanghai Cooperation Organization, we are talking about African Union, we are talking about many countries in Southern and Northern America, by the way, that are in Russian support. They know perfectly well who is the bad guys in this story. It's definitely Western ruling class and their puppets in the governments of these EU and NATO member states. And majority of them, as I said, are puppets. There might be very few exceptions. Hungary and Slovakia being an example of that exception, obviously. And yet again, of course, NATO is destined to fail. In this case also, they're not gonna intimidate this world. They failed until now, and they will continue to fail from now on also. And all the countries worldwide that are on Russian side, on side of true, by the way, on side of just, on right side of history, all those countries will of course continue cooperation with Russia and even further intensify this cooperation. That's what is going to happen. Although some other statements were also made during this clown show in Washington, so-called summit. For example, Blinken, head of US State Department, spoke about F-16s, that F-16s being delivered to Kyiv regime right now as this summit is taking place, and this summer F-16s will become operational in Ukraine. Let's see. I mean, we are hearing these talks about F-16s for so many months that I don't think anybody cares really anymore. Although, by the way, Russian position on F-16s were very clear. Russia will take it. If F-16s will appear in Ukrainian sky, Russia will take it as a nuclear danger, because those planes are nuclear capable. And Russia was very clear that from whichever air bases these F-16s will operate, those air bases will be destroyed in Ukraine and outside of Ukraine. That's basically what is most important in this case. So let's see. And Zelensky also spoke about F-16s, by the way. Zelensky, this illegitimate representative of the Kyiv regime, and he demanded some 120 or something F-16s. Just recently there was information that Kyiv regime is demanding some submarines. Now they want 120 F-16s. Why not F-22s or F-35s? I mean, why just F-16s, for God's sake, man? I mean, Zelensky has some fantasy, right? So he can demand also, I don't know, maybe he will demand some nuclear weapons to be transferred to Kyiv regime also. Let's see. That's going to be next stage of desperation of the Kyiv regime, I guess. They will start demanding nuclear weapons also. And by the way, no 100 or 120 F-16s gonna arrive in Ukraine. And I'm quite skeptical at this point that we will even see F-16s operating formally under Kyiv regime. I'm becoming more and more skeptical of that, despite all these statements from Blinken, Minken, and the rest of the criminals and the terrorists from the collective West. Meanwhile, Canada is allocating another $367 million for military aid package, new military aid package for Kyiv regime. I guess from 367 million, 300 will go straight away into pockets of military industrial complex. And from 67 million, I guess all of it will go into pockets of these corrupt officials of Canada and the Kyiv regime. Of course, this new military aid package will not change nothing on the battlefield. The outcome is already known, by the way. Russia already defeated NATO in this proxy war that Western ruling class is waging against Russia. And for everybody, this is clear, by the way. Just formalization is left, and we will formalize that. Just give it a time, and everything will become much more clear. Much more clear. And before I continue, dear friends, let me mention, if I may, that this small media project of mine with several channels on YouTube, Rumble, Telegram is completely subscriber funded. And if you like my work, if you like my channels, please consider to support with donations or by subscribing to my Patreon and Boosted channels, so that I will be able to maintain this project and also maybe further develop, transform this project into something little bigger, hopefully. All the links, by the way, to my PayPal, to my Patreon page, to my Boost page under this video in description box and in the pinned comment. And let's continue with this report that according to Vzгляд newspaper, Defense Minister of Poland, Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz, made a statement that Poland is not going to shut down no Russian missiles or drones over the Ukraine. This was so obvious from the beginning. I know there was a chapter in a recently signed agreement between Ukraine and Poland about this cooperation, security cooperation and stuff, but I said straight away, isn't it, that we are observing preparations on the part of West, including Poland being a part of this collective West, preparation of the ground for occupation of the Western Ukraine. And all these documents that are signed right now will be used to, as a tool for propaganda, tool to justify occupation of the Western Ukraine once this order is given. Once NATO troops will receive orders and they will move into Western Ukraine to establish control over that region. And that's the time, by the way, when NATO will try to establish no-fly zone over these western parts of Ukraine. And that's when these documents will come to play, including this recent security agreement between Ukraine and Poland, when Polish side is leaving to itself right to operate in the skies of Western Ukraine, basically, to shut down aerial targets into Western Ukraine. And for whatever reason, I don't know why, but many commentators, many experts start talking about Polish direct involvement into military conflict right now, as if Poland is planning to shut down Russian missiles today or tomorrow or day after, which is not the case, by the way, and it wasn't never case. All these documents are preparation of the ground, attempt of the Western ruling class to create this legal basement for occupation of the Western Ukraine and then introduction of the no-fly zone of the Western Ukraine. And I don't think this information is going to be some sort of surprise to our community, at least, because I spoke about inevitable divide of Ukraine from, since forever, I guess, at this point. I said millions times, maybe not million times, but many times, that after this conflict will end, Ukraine most likely will be divided. Western Ukraine will be controlled by NATO and eventually claimed by Poland, Hungary, and Romania, and the rest of the Ukraine will be controlled by Russia. And theoretically, I was leaving just like chance that Kiev and surrounding areas may maintain on the political map as some sort of quasi-landlocked state under the name of Ukraine, although just a slight chance, because I truly don't see any reason why would Moscow ever agree on that. So yes, Ukraine will be divided. It's just a matter of time. And Western Ukraine will be controlled by NATO. I spoke about it for so many times. And of course, Western ruling class is trying to prepare some legal basement for their occupation of the Western Ukraine, right? And that's why all those agreements being signed with the Kiev regime, including by Poland. Yes, once order is given, once occupation of the Western Ukraine is green lighted, then yes, Poland and other NATO member states will try to establish no-fly zone, and they will use these documents signed with the Kyiv regime as a justification. And yes, if Russian missiles at that point will fly into Western Ukraine, they will try to neutralize those missiles or drones, because they will try to establish no-fly zone there, right? But only in the Western Ukraine, by the way. I really don't think Western ruling class is suicidal, or NATO member state leadership is suicidal. At least I want to think that there are some sane people also there, and they will not allow full-scale war to erupt between Russia and NATO, and therefore I don't think NATO troops will move any further than Western Ukraine, because in that case, well, they are priority target for Russian troops. But if they stay in Western Ukraine, well, Russia don't really cares about Western Ukraine that much. In my opinion, by the way, yet again, I did not see in studies, but I think vast majority of Russian citizens, and I think Russian government also, don't really have any ambitions to liberate Western Ukraine. Rest of the Ukraine, yes, that's a whole different story. But Western Ukraine, let Poland, which will occupy 70% at least of the Western Ukraine, because it used to be part of Poland before Second World War. Let Poland, Hungary also, that will claim Transcarpathia, and Romania, that will claim some parts of Western Ukraine. Let them deal with the Ukrainian Nazis and the fascists, right? Because Western Ukraine is a birthplace of the Ukrainian fascism, by the way. Ukrainian Nazism, this ethnic chauvinism. Russia don't really want to have any, to deal with the Western Ukraine in that matter. So yeah, that's all it is, by the way. That's why I am not at all surprised that Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz, defense minister of Poland, said that they have no plans to shut down any Russian missiles or drones over the Ukraine right now, because they don't. Once they will occupy Western Ukraine, then yes, they will try to establish no-fly zone over the Western Ukraine. But rest of the Ukraine, they don't care, man. NATO leadership was quite clear. Their main goal right now is to harm Russia as much as they can, really, because they know perfectly well, in the end, Ukraine will be divided, and that's it, really. At some point, some iron curtain will be rebuilt between the sides, and this Cold War will continue, God knows for how many decades. RIA Novosti is reporting that, well, according to US militaries, according to Pentagon, they will deploy some long-range weapon systems into Germany for 2026, including some hypersonic weapon systems. Let's see. Of course, they're not gonna ask German people anything about it, because Germany is occupied country, and government of Germany, formally government of Germany, in reality is representatives of the occupying force. So yes, if US wants to bring additional weapons, long-range weapon systems into Germany and endanger Germany, because obviously Russia will react on that, and additional Russian nuclear warheads will have targets, will have coordinates of the certain areas in Germany. Well, despite that, well, if Washington wants that, they will do that, because there is no way Germany can resist, because it's an occupied country. Although I have a question, since when Pentagon has hypersonic weapons, by the way? That's the only question I have here. They are still testing some hypersonic weapon systems, and they are failing big time. So maybe this is just too optimistic on part of Pentagon, that they will deploy some hypersonic weapon systems into Germany. Really, build one first, and then brag about. TASS news agency is reporting that, well, according to some insider information of the Bloomberg, Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orban, will visit former US President and possibly future US President Donald Trump in Mar-a-Lago residency of his in Florida state. So yes, this was predictable, right? Straight after this summit, and Orban was basically forced to be there to participate in that circus, by the way, on the name of NATO summit. I'm quite sure he didn't really wanted to be there, by the way, next to those clowns. Clearly, I mean, Orban is a politician, top-level politician, and those bunch of idiots there in NATO summit, who are they really? Just nobodies. So it was embarrassing, I guess, for Orban to be there, but Hungary is a NATO member state, so he had no choice, isn't it? Why Hungary is NATO member state, or what how they are benefiting from that, or why Hungary is an EU member state? I mean, what the hell, man? That's I don't know, man. It's question for Hungarians. Why? I mean, why? But anyways, I guess today, with the first opportunity, Orban will run away from Washington to stay away from that garbage individuals there, and he will have a meeting with the possibly future president of a US, Trump, and one of the topics of discussion most likely will be Ukraine, how to bring peace into Ukraine. Orban was very proactive in this, by pushing this narrative of peace. And if he gains support of Trump and his inner circle, then, well, Orban definitely may go down in history as a politician who played a key role to de-escalate in Ukraine, for sure. Let's continue. Kommersant newspaper is reporting that, Russian Foreign Ministry commented on participation of Foreign Minister of Armenia into this summit. Russian Foreign Ministry was diplomatic. That they said, we are sorry that this happened, and some unfriendly steps from Armenia is taking place, and so on. But if it was up to me, I will say, what, I don't want to have anything to do with you. I'm cutting diplomatic relationships and just stay away. As long as I will say to Armenia, as long as you have these anti-Russian individuals in your government, I mean, sorry, but I have to stay away from you. I mean, you made your choice, people of Armenia. You want to be friends with us, or you want to be friends with our enemies? That would be my position, but I'm not diplomat, obviously. And Russian diplomats, foreign ministry is always very friendly, usually very friendly, cautious in its approaches, and now also, Russia is sorry that Armenia was participating in this NATO summit, and so on and so on. Okay, we get that, but maybe some stronger steps are needed, really, because why all these games, man? We all understand Pashinyan is a CIA asset, right? Pashinyan's government is CIA assets. We know they will destroy relationships with Russia one way or another. They're already doing this. So maybe it is necessary to stay directly, to speak to Armenian society and say, what, guys, you have this CIA assets in your government, and they are destroying relationships with us, with Russia. Armenia's relationships with Russia, because they are acting on behalf of Armenia state. So guys, you have to make a choice. You want to keep these people and be friends of our enemies, or you want to be friends with us? Just make a choice, because with these guys we are not willing to cooperate or deal with Pashinyan and his criminal government there. That's what should be done. And too many games, by the way, just too many games, really, and games that are kind of open. So everyone understands that this is just the games, and everyone understands what is going on, but still this still everyone is pretending if they don't understand what is happening. What the hell, man? Really? Anyways, let's continue. Glad newspaper is reporting that oh yes, U.S. bases were on U.S. bases in Europe are on high alert now, due to some threats from Russian proxies. This was reported by Western media earlier, and Jens Stoltenberg confirmed on sidelines of NATO summit that yes, U.S. military bases are on high alert in Europe. And by the way, Kremlin reacted on this information and accused the Washington Post of Russophobic hysteria. So allegations by anonymous Western officials of a Russian sabotage campaign in Europe are dubious and unfounded. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov has told the Washington Post. The American newspaper had asked President Vladimir Putin's press secretary for a comment on their anonymously sourced claims that Moscow has been recruiting disaffected Europeans for arson and other sabotage attacks. All these assumptions and claims are baseless and no more than incitement of the Russophobic hysteria, Peskov said on Wednesday. The Washington Post's unnamed sources claimed that a series of incidents across Europe, from Germany to Poland and the UK, had been the work of individuals recruited by Russia via encrypted messenger apps. Russia is fighting the West in the West on the Western territory, the outlet quoted a senior NATO official whom it did not name. And once again, by the way, if Russia wants to do some real damage to the Western military industrial complex or to anything really, Russia clearly has means to do it, right? I mean, there is no doubts about it that Russia has much more effective means to deal with its enemies than some I don't know, fires in some companies and some this low level so-called sabotage that take place in Europe. It is that Russophobia is on such a scale that whenever anything is happened, many people are automatically blaming Russia for almost everything. Well, Kremlin is quite clear. Moscow has nothing to do with all those accidents that are happening in the West, in military companies, in companies of military industrial complex. And that's official statement, by the way. But me personally think if in these companies are working people that know NATO is a terrorist organization and Western ruling class is an evil force, and if they want to harm this evil force in any way, shape or form, they are welcome. Just do whatever you think is necessary, whatever you can to harm any way, shape or form this evil force that Western ruling class is. Just make sure you're not gonna harm ordinary people like us. Just make sure in the process you're not gonna harm ordinary people, right? That's my personal take, by the way. But official position of Kremlin is that Russia has nothing to do with all those accidents in the West, in manufacturing plants or elsewhere. Let's continue. And well, Germany, after US, also made decision to reconsider its relationships with Georgia. Okay, Brussels, EU is basically reconsidering its relationships with Georgia and stopped Georgians' assumption into EU, which is good news for Georgia, by the way, I will say. Also, US is stopping all the programs of cooperation with Georgia, and now Germany is doing the same. Okay, okay, we know perfectly well now. If anyone had any doubts, that all Western ruling class wanted in regards to Georgia is to control Georgia, use Georgia, abuse Georgia, and sacrifice by using it against Russia as a kind of second front. If anyone had any doubts on that, I think now it's all clear, isn't it? All Georgian government did, by the way, is adopted law about foreign agents so that public will know which so-called media, which NGOs are financed from outside of Georgia. That's all Georgian parliament did, adopted this law about foreign agents. By the way, Canada adopted foreign agents law just a couple of weeks ago, and somehow I did not see any noise in the West about it. So Canada can do it. US can do it because US is one of the first countries that adopted this law some 100 years ago. All other European states, for example, it's not just North America, by the way, not just a phenomenon of the Canada or US. In Europe, many countries, if not majority, have exactly the similar law in place. So why Georgia is any difference? Maybe because Western ruling class don't want Georgian society to know who is manipulating with their internal politics of Georgia, who is trying to control narratives in Georgia. Because people will realize that, you know what, all this propaganda that Western ruling class is a friend of ours and EU is friend of ours and NATO is friend of ours is false. Maybe that's the case. And of course it is the case. And it's good, by the way, it's good that Georgian society finally is waking up. And Georgia finally has a government that not afraid to stand up to Western ruling class. They should be very careful, obviously, because Western so-called elites, they are as I said many times, by the way, they are mass murderers and ruthless killers, obviously, and capable of anything, any evil. And therefore, of course, Georgian government should be careful, but still, of course, they have to stand up to this evil force. And they do it. Good for them. Vzgled newspaper is reporting that Matvienko, by the way, head of Russia's upper parliament, Council of Federation, stated that some 24 countries, by the way, are awaiting invitation into the BRICS. 24 countries want worldwide want to join BRICS right now, and this number will of course increase. And this information is answered, by the way, on demands of NATO from the world to cut ties with Russia, right? That's how the world is voting. They want to maintain good relationships with Russia, for they improve relationships with Russia, because they know Russia is on the right side of history, and Western ruling class is an evil force. Not just on the wrong side of history, but Western ruling class is an evil force that needs to be neutralized. That's how it is, by the way. And I will end this update on this good news that BRICS is gaining more and more popularity worldwide. I mean, 24 countries want to join already, and of course many more countries will come up with the same decision. And yes, BRICS will continue its enlargement process, because it's a foundation, it's a keystone for emerging multipolar world, obviously. And at some point in the future, collective West will also join this multipolar world. It will take some time before Western societies will wake up, but they will wake up eventually. I'm talking about majority, of course. There are minorities, well-informed minorities in the West, obviously, but they are just not in a position now to have a real influence on the processes. But once majority will wake up, with help of this informed minority included, then some changes will inevitably happen in ruling elites of the West, and eventually, of course, West will join multipolar world, because that's how it's supposed to be. World needs to be united, and I don't think it's a good thing that right now Western world or collective West is getting isolated from the rest of the world because of these crazy policies of their elites there. But anyways, I will end this update now. Hopefully you will find it interesting, informative, and if so, please click that like button and leave some commentary. More likes and comments, that's the only way we can somehow influence our algorithm to reach wider audience. And for very same reason, if you can, please share information about my channel with your friends in real life or on internet, on the platforms that you're actively using, and that's it really. If you like my work, if you want to support, all the links, by the way, are under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. Bye for now.